Welcome back with a smiley face. A link of previous episodes is provided into the description of the video. You can also join us on Patreon to listen more unlimited audiobooks like this. You can also visit and shop our ebooks. His Revenge to Restitution. Episode 2. Chapter 9 to 15. Azalea. Lily was only able to put off the kids until around dinner time. They were insistent on seeing their father, especially Delilah. I could tell by the look on her face that she wasn't sure how to tell them because she was struggling with it herself. The only thing that distracted them momentarily was Missy and Maddox joining us. The kids were excited to see them and Leo insisted on sitting on Missy's lap while they ate. Although she tried to hide it, I could see the fresh mark on her neck. Liam saw it too, and I could see the conflict on his face. He was happy his daughter found a good mate, but he wasn't happy about her having S**X. I just patted his leg and smiled, knowing our little girl wasn't so little anymore. I knew Lily needed help, so I offered to go with her. She agreed, even though her eyes were misty as she thought about telling them. After dinner, Liam took our children to play video games while Ashley napped. Missy and Maddox joined them after stopping to tell me they wanted to move out of the pack house and into Missy's house soon. I told them we could talk tomorrow and they should stay here tonight. When I caught up to her, Lily was trying to tell Delilah and Lucas where their father was at. So, you know how Daddy is big and strong and one of the best fighters in the whole pack, she explained. Lucas nodded enthusiastically while Delilah just stared at her. Well, sometimes, Daddy can still get hurt, she said. No, he can't. Delilah said. Only Uncle Liam can hurt Daddy. I know, sweetie, Lily struggled. But every once in a while, Daddy and Uncle Liam meet someone that might be a little stronger. Is Daddy hurt? Lucas asked her. Yes, Daddy got hurt. Dr. Ron has been working very hard to make Daddy better, though, she answered. No. Delilah said, starting to cry. You're lying. Lily looked so hurt at her daughter's distrust. Hey, I said, getting both kids' attention. Now your daddy is an amazing fighter, one of the best, really. But sometimes, people don't play by the rules. Someone pulled a mean trick on your daddy, and he got hurt because of it. Lily nodded her head. Yes, just like Aunt Lee says. Someone tricked him. Right now, he is just sleeping while his body gets better, I said. But soon, he will wake up, and you will have your same old daddy back. When will he wake up? Lucas asked. We don't just yet, Bud, I said, rubbing his arm comfortingly. But I am sure it will be soon. I want to see him, Delilah sniffled. Okay, Lily said. We can go see him. She looked at me for confirmation, and I nodded. Do you want to grab a car, and Azran and I can wait with the kids? I asked. Lily nodded and stood to leave us. He is resting at Dr. Ron's clinic so Dr. Ron can make sure he is all fixed up, I told them. Lucas just nodded while Delilah held back tears. We are going over to the clinic so the kids can see Damien, I linked Liam. Be careful, he said back. All right, let's go wait for Mom to bring the car up, I said. They both nodded, and the four of us headed outside to wait. When we got to the clinic, the kids followed Lily closely while we headed back to Damien's room. When we got outside of it, she stopped them. Daddy is sleeping right now, so we can hug him, but we need to be gentle, okay, she said. Both kids nodded. She opened the door, and they rushed to Damien's side. I stopped next to Lily, grabbing her hand. We'll wake him up, They won't lose their dad. Oh goddess, I hope so, she said in a shaky voice. We watched as the kids went to either side of Damien's bed. Lucas stopped and just observed his father. Delilah was still for a minute before she threw herself over him and started to sob. It's not fair, she cried as Lily came to her side. I would have stopped the bad people. Why would they hurt my daddy? Lily rubbed a hand up and down her back. I know, sweetie, she whispered. Azrin and I stood outside the door, letting them all have their moment. Over the next few days, RSVPs started arriving for Liam's summit. At first, he was insistent that he could handle the arrangements for everything on his own, but when more than 20 packs had agreed to come in only a short time, he was quickly overwhelmed. He finally relented and let me help him. Unfortunately, Lily was still with Damien for much of her time. Felix and Lacey took an entire 48 hours to join the world once more, but no one could blame them. When they did, Felix seemed more relaxed than when he arrived, and Lacey was vibrant and full of life once more. They started watching the kids during the day except for Isley, who mainly stayed by my side. Maddox spent most of his time training or helping Austin with pack matters, while Missy spent her time helping me with the arrangements for the summit. Maddox was quickly absorbing all aspects of the responsibilities that came with managing a pack. I was happy to have Missy's help in Lily's absence but still missed my best friend. She had been quiet thus far about the matter of moving out of the pack house with her mate, but I knew the conversation would need to happen soon. Langston went back to his pack and had Emma help work up some accommodations for all the visitors. We were hopeful that between the two neighboring packs, we could find places for everyone attending. Once Missy and I began to tackle the lodging and food arrangements, Liam was able to focus on the security around the pack and how he was going to present the situation. He planned to quadruple our border patrol, putting enough bodies on the borders so that there was one to about every 40 YD section. This was no small feat with the size our pack lands and required the additional support of Langston's pack to make sure it was adequately managed. He also set up access points so that the wolves traveling into the pack could only enter from specific points. Their identities would be verified before we permitted them entry. Each pack was required to respond to their invitation with names and photos of those traveling with them, as well as a password they would use to enter. Within a few days, Missy and I had almost enough lodging prepared for the RSVPs that we had received. We would make use of as many rooms in the pack house as possible. Lily and the kids were temporarily coming to our floor. Missy and Maddox were staying at Missy's house for the couple of days that this would last, with the agreement to speak about it becoming a permanent move after the summit. I worked with Lemon to clear up as many rooms at the inn as possible, and she was even able to reschedule some reservations by offering some discounts for reservation transfers. The construction on the group home was complete, so half of those rooms were being designated for guests as well. Langston and Emma could make room in their own pack house to accommodate some of the guests, but it was still falling short of our needs. Then, Missy surprised me with a usable solution. So, school has been postponed for a couple of weeks, right? Why not use the classrooms, she said as we were looking over the growing list of summit attendants. That might actually work, I said excitedly. We can have all the desks and chairs moved down to the basements or maybe the gymnasium temporarily. Yeah, and you can fit a couple of beds in each one, plus there are locker rooms for people to shower in, she said. That's my smart girl, I said proudly. As we finally had a plan for housing everyone joining us, we moved on to the more significant task of feeding all of these people. Miss Marcy had begun researching different cuisine norms from across the continent. We sat down and put together menus that could offer variety to guests and provide alternative options for dietary restrictions we might encounter. Abigail agreed to help with all the cooking. Missy also convinced Sol and her other friends to help. While all the pieces were coming together, this summit had turned into no small undertaking. By the end of the week following the sending of the invitations, we had RSVPs from 68 different packs. Our messengers had finally exhausted their searches by then, so we still expected a few more to come in. Liam was a tornado of stress. As the different packs accepted his invitation, he tried to learn as much as he could about them. Jacob and Gentry were helping him to find out anything and everything about all our potential allies. One evening, I brought Isley and a plate of food up to him in his office when he missed dinner. He had folders covering every inch of his office, and he was going between them all. He was trying to identify those he potentially thought would be the best suited to help lead this combined force of werewolves he was trying to build. I had to pull the folders from his hands and replace them with his daughter to get him to agree to retire for the night. With Liam's agreement, I got Azran to collect the files back up nicely while I took Liam and Isley to our room for the night. "This has to work," he muttered as he played with Isley on the bed. He laid her down in between his legs and tickled her feet, making her giggle and kick. "It will," I said, rubbing his back. "You're an amazing alpha, and no one else could pull this off like you." "Only because I have help," he said. "Why wouldn't your pack step up to help you?" I said. He was quiet for a minute more, his superficial smile directed only at his daughter. "I don't want to think about what will happen if Warwick decides to attack before we are ready," he said. "We'll be ready, my alpha." Missy. Maddox was coming out of the shower when I finally dragged myself into the bedroom. All of this summit preparation was just exhausting. I couldn't imagine how Lee could so flawlessly flick from one problem to another, solving everything in her path. I could never do what she does. Thank goddess, I am not mated to an alpha. I slumped on the bed as Maddox exited the bathroom, shorts on his hip and a towel over his hair. He came right to the bed and leaned over me, trapping me in between his arms. "Hi," he said with a mischievous smile. I groaned. "You look tired, darling," he said, his face softening. I just nodded my head. "I know what might help." He climbed on the bed and flipped me over, settling himself on top of my back. His deft fingers started attacking my shoulders, and I melted into the mattress. I hummed. Maddox laughed. "Feel good?" When I didn't answer, enjoying it too much to bother, his hands stopped. "No, come back," I said quickly. He chuckled again and went back to his rubbing. "So, did you talk to your mom today?" he asked. I sighed. "She said she wanted to talk to Liam but thinks if we promise to focus on school once it's over, we can attend the summit." "What do you think Alpha will say?" he asked. "I'm not sure. I can't really tell where his head is at lately," I lamented. "If Damien would wake up, everything would probably be different." "I think we all want him to wake up," Maddox said. "Lee still goes every day," I told him. "She sits by his bed and tries to wake him up even amidst all the preparations. Do you think she can do it?" "Goddess, I hope so." Chapter 10. Liam. All too soon, it was time for other packs to start arriving for the summit. Azalea had done a great job with all the preparations. I never doubted she could, but I had tried to keep from making more work for her. I was glad she stepped in when she did, though, because I could have never pulled this off by myself, especially without my beta. Damien still slept, although my uncle had said he saw improvement. Lily said she swore he gripped her hand the other day, but my uncle thought it was involuntary. I was unsure who wanted him awake more, Lily or Delilah. I was completely caught off guard when she came up to me at dinner one night and punched me right in the stomach for not protecting her dad. Of course, I knew she was upset and having trouble coming to terms with what was happening, but it still hurt a bit. Langston and Emma were already here with a batch of their warriors, agreeing to help us welcome everyone and get them situated. All the summit participants would begin arriving in the next hour. There was to be a welcome dinner this evening, then all the talks to start tomorrow. The closer it got to the time, the more nervous I grew. My Alpha, Azalea's sing-song voice came through my head. Yes, little Luna. Would you come join me in our room for just a minute? Confused about what she could need right now, I headed out of my office and upstairs. Gavin had been agitated for a couple of days now, suspicious of all these packs we didn't really know. He was convinced our pups were in danger with all the strange people around. When I came into the bedroom, Azalea exited the bathroom, shaking out her gingery curls. She looked beautiful, sophisticated, and powerful all at once. She was perfect without even trying, but she still always rendered me speechless. "Let me fix you," she said, coming over to me. She grabbed my wrists and started rolling the cuffs of my dress shirt up. "Still business, but now also, I take care of business." She smiled brightly as she worked. "Where is Isley, and the boys?" I asked her. "Your mom just came to collect them. She is going to watch Isley tonight, and your dad is going to take the boys into the city for dinner and a movie," she explained. "Oh, good," I said. Gavin got even antsier with our pups far away. When she was done, she gently pushed my chest, signaling me to move backward. "Sit," she commanded when we neared the bed. I sat down, coming down to eye level with her. "Let me talk to Gavin, please," she requested. "Little Luna, what are you up to?" I asked. "Liam, please," she said, putting her hand on her hip and giving me an expectant look. Okay, I said, relenting. I let Gavin come forward, he needed no persuasion. "Little mate," he growled. "Gavin, we need to talk about the next couple of days," Azalea said. He nodded at her. "Our pups are going to be with people I trust to keep them safe, okay," she continued. Gavin frowned at her. "I can't very well help make sure everything goes smoothly if I am chasing around a pair of boys and tending to a baby, can I?" When Gavin gave her no response, she stepped in between our legs and wrapped her hands around our neck. "I promise to stay with Azrin or Felix all weekend." "Stay in my sight," he demanded. "I will do my best, deal," she countered. Gavin studied her face for a minute before he nodded. She gave him a sweet smile before leaning in to kiss him. I pulled back control, not wanting Gavin to take more when she was just barely healed from Isley's birth. "And how do you feel now?" she asked, pulling away. "A little better," I admitted. "Great," she said. "Let's get downstairs. You have guests to greet soon." The access points worked well, and while there was some frustration in waiting to be admitted into our territory, many of the alphas seemed to understand the security need. Maddox, Felix, Sean, and a few other warriors escorted each arriving group to the pack house, where Azalea and I greeted them before Abigail, Emma, and Missy took them to their accommodations to get settled in before the welcome dinner began. All the guests going to Langston's pack headed there in groups with Langston's beta and his mate. Those that arrived to represent their packs were a wide-ranging crowd. One of the firsts to arrive was the Alpha and Beta from Timber Ridge's pack. Jet Huxley introduced himself as Alpha and gave his regrets for his Luna, claiming she had to stay behind to take care of some things. The man came off as a bit odd and avoided eye contact, which was not usual for any other Alpha I had met so far. His beta, Lance, was quiet for much of the exchange. Azalea was quite taken with the Luna of Starry pack. Quinn was a sweet woman with vibrantly blue hair and a face full of freckles under her large, square glasses. Her mate, Alpha Michael Johnson, was a reserved man. He seemed very capable, and our research noted that he had extensive knowledge of defensive tactics. The pair seemed a bit odd but fit well together. One pack only came represented by their Luna and one of their warriors to accompany her. Luna Jess Allen told us her mate sent his regrets, having to stay back last minute, but she was fully capable of speaking for her people. Although unconventional, we welcomed her all the same. She was a woman of moderate height with a strong build, although she looked like she had recently lost some weight. She had deep olive skin and light brown hair that fell in long waves down her back like she had just come from the beach. I was disappointed her mate did not come, as he was one I had hoped would help to train and lead the united force I wanted to put together. The least likable alpha to arrive was that of Midnight Shadow Pack. The pack was located in the heart of a major urban area, so I expected them to be different but not arrogant. Alpha Aidon Lombardi was a pompous prick from the moment he stepped foot onto my territory, and I could tell he was barely deigning to be present. His beta was a female named Meadow and seemed more like a secretary than a beta. I did not miss her eye-rolling and exasperated expressions behind Aiden's back, though. I was surprised to meet the alphas of Twin Thorns Pack, Andrus and Carson. We didn't have much information from them as they were located northwest along the coast. They were mates, and both fulfilled the role of alpha, as they explained. It was an interesting dynamic that was unique to only them. Azalea found them sweet and endearing. I was only worried about having to convince not one but two alphas to join my plight. The oddest of the day was, hands down, the Twilight Dawn Pack. They joined us all in wolf form except for one member of the group. She rode in on the back of one of the others. Felix was skeptical of them from the moment he collected them from the access point. The only member of their group that was not shifted introduced herself as Salali, or Lala for short. She explained that their pack was deeply rooted in tradition, and they rarely shifted from their wolf form. She informed us that she would act as the translator between her alpha and us. She introduced the chestnut brown wolf as Diwali, the alpha, the light brown wolf with white sock markings as Adsila, the Luna, and the black and grey streaked wolf as Mohi, the beta. They garnered the attention of everyone with their unconventional manner, but Salali was courteous and friendly. They also refused any indoor lodging we could offer, claiming they would rather sleep under the eye of the goddess. Azalea. The arrival process went almost flawlessly. Everyone did their jobs well, and Liam and I met and greeted every guest. There were quite a few interesting characters among them, but I was confident Liam could convince many of these wolves to help us. I tried to leave Liam to check on Miss Marcy and her volunteers in the kitchen, but Liam had me glued to him. Gavin was serious about staying in his sight. Luckily, Missy and Maddox returned and offered to go see how things were shaping up for our welcome dinner. "I am sure everything is fine," Liam assured me as we headed for the back lawn. "We need to get out back and start mingling." I know, I said. The only space big enough for everyone to eat and be seated for this was the back lawn of the pack house. We had tables and tents set up for tonight, giving everyone covered eating space. Although the discussions and meetings over the next 2 days were closed to normal pack members, they would also be held outside. "Missy says that food is on track to come out on time," Liam told me. "Good," I said. It was a relief to know things were still running smoothly, but now was time for my least favorite part. As we came around back, we saw that many of our guests had arrived back at the pack house and were mingling amongst each other. Emma and Langston were speaking with Alpha Jet and Beta Lance. Alpha Jet seemed a bit distracted, his eyes scanning the crowd repeatedly. We locked eyes for a moment, and a weird look came over his face. He quickly averted his attention back to the conversation continuing around him. Liam led us toward Alphas Andres and Carson, who was chatting with Alpha Michael and a few others. "Good evening," Liam said as we joined them. "Alpha Liam, I must say I was very impressed with the little inn you have set us up in. The staff was excellent, and the town was very nice," Alpha Michael said. "Oh well, all that praise goes to my Luna, actually. She owns and operates the Blue Moon Inn, and she is a very important part of that little town," Liam said while smiling at me. I could feel myself blush as I nodded. "Well, Luna Azalea, you have a top-notch staff," Alpha Michael continued. "Well, it's like a second home, and really, I owe most of it to Lemon," I said. "So, Alpha Liam, do you and your mate have children?" Alpha Carson asked. Alpha Andres stood with his arm around Carson's waist, almost protectively. "Yes, we do. You actually already met my oldest today, Missy is our eldest, and the others are with the grandparents for the evening," Liam explained. The lovely young lady that had the warrior boy following her around with googly eyes. Alpha Carson asked. "Your eldest is a girl?" Alpha Michael asked. "That is quite uncommon," Alpha Andres added. "Yes, Missy is our eldest, and Maddox is her mate. They both recently turned 17, Liam said. "How beautiful," Alpha Carson said. "It took me years to find Andres. My mate and I knew long before mating age," Michael smiled. "Where is Luna Quinn?" I asked. "Oh, she's wandering around here somewhere. Probably scribbling in her notebook," Michael said, waving off and seeming not at all worried about his mate in a strange place. I peeked around the back lawn, looking for her telltale blue hair as the men continued their conversation. When I finally spotted her, I noticed her near the trees furiously scribbling in a small notebook. "I'll be right back," I told Liam over Link. At first, he wouldn't let go of my waist. "Where are you going?" he asked, and I could feel how nervous he was at the thought of me leaving his side. "Just over there for a moment. Azrin will come with me," I reassured him. He reluctantly let go of me, and I excused myself. I heard one of them chuckling about Azrin following me away. I headed toward Luna Quinn, realizing she was wandering a bit close to the prison entrance. It was probably best that no one goes near it with the extra people on our land right now. "Hello," I said as I came up next to her. "Oh, Luna Azalea," she said, looking up. "I hope everything is okay over here," I said. "Oh yes, very much," she said excitedly. "Your pack land is just so beautiful, and all of these people are so interesting." "Yes," I laughed. "There is quite a diverse crowd in attendance. Can I ask what you were writing?" "Oh, this," she asked, pointing to her notebook. "It's a bit silly, really." "I am sure it isn't," I assured her. "Well, you see, humans think werewolves are just works of fiction unless, of course, they become mated to one. I am an author who writes fiction about werewolves," she said using air quotes around the word fiction. "So you write about actual werewolves and sell the stories to humans as fiction?" I asked her. "Isn't that a bit dangerous? That tells them all about us." "Oh," she laughed. "I changed details around and throw in other stuff to keep them off our trail." "Luna, dinner is about to begin," Azrin said low next to me. "Well, I have to say, you are more interesting than I thought. How about we head over for dinner? I love food." "Please," she said, smiling brightly. Chapter 11. The welcome dinner went along well. There were plenty of groups that kept to themselves, appearing skeptical of the entire situation. Many others mingled amongst each other, talking and chatting with others they may or may not know. Luna Jess Allen seemed to keep to herself, as a single warrior was her only company. She also retired early from the gathering. When it started getting late, Liam bid everyone good night, and they all began migrating back to their various dwellings for the night. I was relieved that we would finally be out of a crowd for the day. While I had grown more accustomed to being at large gatherings as a Luna, I was still not much of a fan. Before we headed to our room for the night, I wanted to check on Lily over at the clinic. "My Alpha," I said as we headed inside the pack house. "Yes, little Luna. Let's go check on Lily and Damien," I said. He smiled and nodded. "I think that's a good idea," he said. We headed right over to the clinic where Dr. Ron was on his way out for the night. Liam stopped to chat with him while I headed back to see Lily. When I walked into the room, she was carefully shaving his face. "Hey," she said, noticing me come in. "You know the nurses can help with that," I said. Lily shook her head. "No, I want to do it," she said softly. She finished up, and I waited for her to wipe up Damien's face and move her supplies away. "That's a little better." I came over and put my arm around her. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "How are you doing?" She let out a heavy sigh. "I don't understand. If whatever you are doing is helping, then why isn't he awake yet?" "We'll get him there, I promise," I said. "Not tonight, little Luna," Liam said, coming into the room. I scowled as I looked over at him. "Liam's right," Lily lamented. "You need to be at 100% over the next couple of days. Even with your shadow over there, Liam needs his Luna." I hugged Lily tighter, wishing Damien would just wake up. She was losing weight and starting to look a bit sick. While werewolves generally don't get sick, it still happens, especially when separated from our mates for too long. Some cope better than others, but stronger bonds usually come with greater physical dependence. "Are you staying here tonight, or do you want to come back to the pack house with us?" I asked her. "I want to stay with him," she said. Liam was up before the sun the following morning. He went to his office early to debrief with the warrior in charge of the night patrol to make sure nothing was amiss last night. The wrench in our plans with the Twilight Dawn pack caused some confusion, but Sean had resolved it before they needed to call Liam. I woke early as well and texted Felix so that I could head down to the kitchens to help with breakfast preparations. Miss Marcy had prepared a large arrangement of breakfast pastries beforehand to help with the workload of feeding so many people. Lacey accompanied Felix when he arrived at our door, looking round and glowing. She had a dazed smile on her face that I could only guess meant they were already up when I messaged Felix. When we got down to the kitchen, it was bustling. Missy found far more volunteers to help with meal preparations than I realized, and everyone was working. When she saw us, Miss Marcy tried to shoo me away. "No, really," I told her. "How can I help?" "That wonderful daughter of yours found me more than enough help," she said. "I have plenty of hands, and we are ahead of schedule." "Are you sure?" I asked her. Yes, she said, pushing us back out of the kitchen. "Coffee and tea are already put out in the dining room. Go get yourself a cup and relax." With no other option, I headed to the dining room with Felix and Lacey. I was surprised to see a few of our guests already inside, getting coffee before it was time for breakfast to be served. "I'll get us some tea, Luna," Lacey said. She skipped over to the large table laden with coffee and tea, cups, creamers, and sweeteners. Felix rolled his eyes, and I laughed at him. She seems very happy that you are back, I commented. Felix just nodded. Have you guys been able to find out the S*X yet? Felix shook his head as Lacey joined us. She handed me a cup of peppermint tea and said, we can find out in about a week. But Felix can't decide if he wants to know or wants it to be a surprise. Really? I said, looking over at my longtime bodyguard. Lacey laughed. Oh yes. It's tormenting him. Others started trickling into the dining room, looking for a caffeine fix, especially those staying at the pack house. Beta Meadow came in looking thoroughly irritated, and I was worried it had something to do with their stay, so I approached her while she poured herself some coffee. Good morning, Beta, I said, offering her a smile. Oh, good morning, Luna, she said. I hope you slept well, I prompted. Oh, yes. Thank you, she said distractedly. She closed her eyes and let out a sigh. I am sorry, she said, realizing I was looking at her strangely. It's my alpha, unfortunately. Is everything all right? I asked. I didn't want everything to be wrong before Liam even got a chance to present the situation to everyone. Aidan is a bit, she trailed off for a second. High maintenance. If there is something I can help with, please let me know, she stopped me. No. He is fine. I looked around us for a moment, ensuring everyone else was not paying attention. Can I speak frankly for a moment? I asked her. She nodded and began stirring sugar into her coffee. I may be very wrong here, but it seems like he treats you like an assistant, not a beta. That's because I am his assistant, she said flatly. He made me beta by default. He doesn't trust many males in his inner circle, and I have been with him for a few years now. He thought it easiest to grant me the title. Oh, I said in surprise. Aidan is a good guy deep down, it's just very, very deep, she said resignedly. He has become accustomed to having things his way, which can make my job very difficult. I see, I told her. Well, if you need anything to make your job easier, please don't hesitate to ask. I should go find my mate. She nodded in goodbye, and I left her with Felix in tow. Lacey had disappeared. That alpha will be a challenge, Felix commented quietly. I know, but if we have his beta and assistant on our side, we are heading in the right direction, I reasoned. I get the feeling Alpha Lombardi doesn't really care what his beta thinks. Felix said, his eyes scanning the room. He stayed closer to me than usual. Liam appeared with his father following closely. I could sense his irritation. Good morning, Robert, I said civilly. He nodded at me. Good morning, little Luna, Liam said, kissing my cheek. I rubbed his affectionately and felt him relax fractionally. How does everything look this morning? Apparently, Missy did well, and the kitchen is overstaffed. I was shooed away, I laughed lightly. Great, Liam said, checking his watch. So we should be eating in about 10 minutes. Missy and Maddox joined us at that moment, preventing the grouchy comment I could guess was about to come from Robert. Morning, Missy chirped happily. Hi, Grandpa. Robert smiled slightly at his granddaughter, then frowned at Maddox with his arm around her. Good morning, Alpha and Luna, Maddox said. Maddox, I really think you can call us Azalea and Liam. You are Missy's mate after all, I said. Robert scoffed at my insistence. Why don't we just focus on today? Liam said, narrowing his eyes at his father. I wished Robert didn't feel the need to hover over Liam so much. Everything will work out, I am sure, I silently told Liam. He snaked his arm around me and squeezed just a bit. Thanks, little Luna, he said. Liam. My father's presence only added irritation to my stressed mood. Luckily, I found Azalea with Felix right by her side in the dining room. By the time we finished eating, I was tired of my father's voice in my head with all his opinions. If I thought it would do any good, I would have called my mother to come collect him, but I knew there was no point. There was a brief intermission between breakfast and the beginning of the summit where Azalea and Missy's teams cleared all the tables, getting us ready to begin. Each pack had its own table with chairs set around it so that everyone was facing the front where Langston and I were set. Getting up in front of so many other alphas was a bit daunting, but when I looked at Missy and Azalea standing dutifully by Maddox and Felix, I knew I needed everyone's help to keep them safe. When everyone was seated again, it was time to begin. Langston stood behind me with the girls, Maddox and Felix off to the side. My father was standing to the side of the crowd laid out in front of me. You can do this. They will believe you, and they will help, Azalea linked me. Gavin purred at her support. I want to thank you all for coming here on such short notice, I started. I know my words were few and cryptic, but I asked you all to join me to discuss something of utmost importance. I paused, looking around at everyone. So far, I had their attention. Many of you have heard the stories and rumors as to why my pack holds the name Blood Eclipse. And in order for you to understand the threat we all face now, you should know the true story, I began. I could see my father tense, his fists clenching beneath his crossed arms. It has always been an unspoken rule not to talk about the previous war, but that needed to end. These alphas, lunas, betas, and other wolves tasked with making decisions for their packs needed to know exactly what I was asking them to walk into. Everyone listened with rapt attention as I wove them the dark tale of the previous war. I laid out every detail I could find on the conflict, even those that cast my family in a questionable light. The vampires were not the only ones that did harm before, and I would not hide that fact now. I needed every alpha in attendance to trust me, and the truth was the best way I knew how to do that. By the end of my story, whisperings began among the groups. I was sure they were discussing the rumors and stories they had heard versus what I was telling them today. There are wolves alive today, in this very pack, that can attest to my words. My father, I said, gesturing to him, can attest to the truth in these words. Our namesake has become something of a secret, the pain this conflict caused did not need to be relived. But because of this, because of the hiding and attempt at forgetting, many did not know of the existence of our enemy. So many of my own pack members, warriors, and even those among my chosen leadership could not identify the scent of our enemies before. I could see the vein in my father's forehead pulsing in rage as I spoke. Specifically calling him out may not have been the best idea, but it would gain favor for the few in attendance who knew him as the previous alpha. What does a war that happened decades ago have to do with now? Alpha Andrus called out from his spot next to Carson. We thought we ended that war by cutting the head off the snakes. We thought we killed the sires of the vampire clans that meant us harm. But we were wrong. There were small gasps of shock from mostly the women in attendance. Mutterings began across the crowd. I gave it only a moment before raising my hand to quiet them down. There is one more story I must tell for you to all understand. It all started a few months ago when a group of peaceful rogues showed up on my pack land. Chapter 12. Liam Jr. Delilah and I sat in the grass, rolling a soccer ball in between us. She looked sad all the time now. Lucas and Leo were over with Grandma and Delilah's grandma, who were all gushing over my new baby sister. I loved her, but Delilah was sad, so I thought I should play with her. Summer vacation got extended for a couple more weeks, I said, trying to cheer her up. I know, she said. She mindlessly rolled the ball back to me. Maybe we'll be in the same class this year, I said, rolling the ball back to her. Delilah just shrugged, and we continued our boring game. I'm really sorry about your dad, Lee, I said quietly. It's okay, she said in a wavy voice. But my mom is going to help him. She is really good at fixing people even though it makes her tired, I tried. Delilah caught the ball and gripped it tightly. I hate being small, she said, her voice getting mad. I want to kill the stupid vampire that hurt my daddy. I looked over to make sure our grandmas didn't hear. The grown-ups always whispered or stopped the conversations when we came around, but I saw some papers in my dad's office. I don't like it either, Lee, I told her. Teach me, she said, looking at me seriously. I just looked back, confused. Your sister's mate. He taught you to fight. Maddox taught you lots of stuff. Teach me. My daddy already showed me how to punch. For the first time since she found out Uncle Damien was hurt, Delilah looked serious about something. Please, she begged. If we can fight, we can help. Plus, we're the best team. Okay, I agreed, and she smiled a little. I felt a bit better, making her happy finally. Azalea. As Liam finished relaying the most recent events of our vampire problems, the crowd erupted in conversation. Some of the alphas were calling out questions, some were talking to their people, and others were talking to each other. This had turned into a large mess very quickly. Langston came to join Liam at the center of the stage. I could feel Liam panicking a little bit. Please, everyone, Langston boomed. We know there is a lot to discuss. That only barely made a dent in the buzzing conversation. Please, let's do this civilly, Liam called. People began standing and moving about, discussing with others now. Silence! Robert roared. Everything settled down quickly, and all attention moved to Robert. None of your concerns can be addressed in this manner. Now, in order to discuss this completely, your concerns need to be heard and addressed in turn. Thank you, Father, Liam said tightly. He definitely didn't want Robert's help in this. I will go first. Aidan Lombardi stood, pulling his suit jacket together at the middle and buttoning it. Why exactly should I or my pack care about a vampire that is directing his wrath at a weak alpha incapable of protecting his weaker mate? The alpha's eyes moved from Liam to me. Felix took a step closer to me. Now, I do not think that insulting the hosts of this gathering is in good taste, Alpha Aidan, Langston said threateningly. Liam's shoulders were tight, and I was sure he was exercising every bit of self-control he had. Aidan scoffed. It is no insult to point out the truth, he said. This time I could hear the low growl coming from Liam as Meadows stood and started to say something to her alpha. My Luna, my pack, and my family will not be the only ones targeted, Liam gritted. Do you think he will stop with my pack? Let him try, Aidan scoffed. While Alpha Lombardi's confidence is staggering, Alpha Michael stood to speak. He does raise a good point. From what you told us, this vampire has a personal vendetta for your family and pack alone. More alphas stood and voiced the same concern, and discussion erupted once more. This had started in a positive direction, but now I was afraid we were going to lose them. We have also been afflicted by these monsters, Langston tried to reason over the crowd. And your territory borders that of Blood Eclipse, someone argued back. Emma moved across the small stage, coming to me with a worried look. Azalea, I'm worried, she whispered next to me. Me too, I replied. It seems there is a lot of discussion about how this could be anyone else's problem. I think they are all scared to get involved in something as serious as a race war when they have no skin in the game, she said. I nodded my agreement. I looked over my shoulder at Felix, who narrowed his eyes on someone in the crowd before us. I tried to follow his line of sight to see who he was watching, but I couldn't pick out who. Robert joined Langston and Liam on stage, and the three of them were having a small argument in hushed voices while all the visitors continued their debates. We need time, I whispered. Liam's eyes came to mine as he begrudgingly listened to something his father was saying. Gentry, Austin, and Jacob now joined their little circle. I could see a bit of fear in his expression. He was afraid this wouldn't work. My mate didn't have a plan B. I pulled out my phone and texted Miss Marcy quickly. I bit my lip as I anxiously waited for her reply. What are you thinking? Emma whispered, also looking worriedly at her mate. Food, I said, staring at my phone. Relief coursed through me when a reply came. I put my phone back in my pocket and walked as calmly as possible over to the boys. Azalea, Langston said, noticing my approach. I ignored Robert's eye roll. What's wrong? Liam asked worriedly. Nothing. I have a plan. Can you quiet everyone down again? I asked. Liam just nodded, but I knew he didn't doubt me. We all turned to face the crowd again. Many groups had formed all over the place, various packs discussing their opinions now. Excuse me, Liam called. Can I have everyone's attention? Slowly everyone quieted down around us. Liam placed his hand on the small of my back, and I took it as my signal to speak. Obviously, you all have been given a lot of information this morning, I said loudly but steadily. We never expected you all to agree without your questions answered or discussions to be had. I think, for now, it might be best to break for some lunch. Our kitchen staff has assured me they will be ready to serve in the next 15 minutes. There were a few murmurs of assent as well as some nodding. If you will excuse my mate and me for a brief moment. We will be back to speak with anyone that has questions shortly. Please, enjoy the lunch our staff has prepared in the meantime, Liam called. His hand came to mine, gripping it tightly, and he led me off the stage and back toward the pack house. Felix was right on our heels, and it was only moments before everyone else was following us. Liam pulled me quickly through the pack house and to his office. When we got upstairs, everyone piled in the room. Liam went behind his desk, and everyone stood around it. Jacob, Gentry, would you please go downstairs and monitor the crowd? I would like to know if any disturbances start up, Liam said. They nodded and left the room. Robert closed the door behind him. Your mate bought you some time, but how exactly are you going to convince them to risk the lives of their people to defend yours? Robert snarled. Robert, I think Azalea's plan can only benefit us now. We all had a moment to regroup, and things will come over food. Feeding people always mellows the atmosphere, Langston reasoned. Robert crossed his arms and huffed. Liam, please tell me you have some sort of ace up your sleeve to convince everyone. Austin said, looking at Liam. He stood over his desk with his hands bracing his body. Everyone was quiet, waiting for his answer. The silence was interrupted by Robert's laugh. My foolish son thought that the sob story would be enough, he said. Maybe Lee could testify to everything. Emma suggested. That won't do anything. They will all expect his mate to be behind him 100%, Langston said. I chewed my lip as they all discussed what to do next. Liam stayed quiet. I moved next to him and set my hand on his shoulder. Liam. I linked him. I don't even have a vampire to parade out in front of them. I have no way to prove this, Liam said. We'll think of something, I tried to reassure him. Damien's in a coma, and I can't even rally the support to fight the ones responsible, he said. I could feel Liam's pain. He felt guilty. What about the photos? Felix said. Liam's head came up at his words. That is right. We have the photos of Warwick's recent message, Langston said. Aren't those a tad morbid? I supplied. These are alphas you are addressing. They all know the consequences of war and are responsible for the lives of more than a few, Robert growled. I narrowed my eyes at him. Dad, enough, Liam demanded. He turned to Langston. Do you think they are convincing enough? Langston turned his head side to side in thought. They could at least put to bed any doubts they are having. It will not give them a reason as to why they should help, though. Let's start with that, Liam said. Langston nodded before grabbing Emma and taking her with him from the room. Austin, can you go fill Gentry and Jacob in? Austin nodded. And find Azran, Felix added. Austin gave him a questioning look, but Felix supplied no other answer. Austin left the room, leaving Liam and me with Robert and Felix. You can't just win everyone to your side with emotional pleas, boy, Robert spat. Dad. They don't care about your shortcomings or weak Luna, he trudged on. Dad, Liam got louder. The smart ones are just waiting for Warwick to kill you and Azalea so they can swoop in and take your territory. They are going to let this vampire do the heavy lifting for them. Robert continued. Enough. Liam shouted at Robert. I took a slight step back, not expecting his explosion. Liam was bursting with anger, but I knew it was all directed at Robert. You need to leave. Leave this packhouse and my summit. If you are not here to actually help us fight this war, then get out. You will not sit here and continue to call my mate and me weak because I refuse to be the heartless bastard that you are. How dare you speak to me like that? Robert growled as he took a menacing step forward. Felix's hand came to my elbow and discreetly pulled me a step closer to him. Stop. I am the alpha, not you. I will lead as I see fit. Liam screamed. How did I raise such a pathetic? I said enough. Liam boomed with his alpha tone. Robert shut his mouth with a nasty look on his face. I could see one of Liam's eyes dark as midnight. Gavin was sharing control with him. Get out now. Robert looked like he was going to fight for a minute but surprised us by turning and storming out of the room. Felix, give us a minute, Liam said in a dark tone. Felix nodded and edged out of your room. Liam watched him leave, then turned his eyes on me. Come here, he said. I moved towards him, a bit worried about where this was going. I stopped in front of him right next to his desk. His hand cupped my cheek before his lips attacked mine. He kissed me roughly as his arm snaked around my waist. I felt myself being lifted, then Liam turned and deposited me on the desk. I put my hands on his chest, trying to keep up with his assault. Liam, I tried between breaths. Gavin, all I got was a growl in response. His hands began roaming, squeezing, and grabbing all over. I was heating up all over but had no idea where this was coming from. Finally, I managed to bite his lip hard, giving him pause. Liam, I said, breathing heavily. Calm down, please. Someone is threatening little mate, Gavin growled. What are you talking about? I asked. I brought my hands up to stroke his face. Liam slowly calmed under my touch, and his eyes went back to their normal, clear blue. Felix thinks someone is planning to hurt you, Liam said, a bit more calm now. I'm sorry. Between that and my dad, I just... It's okay, I said soothingly. Maybe Felix is just being overly cautious. After everything that has happened over the past few months, I'm sure he is more suspicious. If anyone came into my pack with the sole intent of hurting my mate, they will not die pleasantly, Liam promised. Chapter 13. Once Liam was calm again, we headed downstairs and to the outside for lunch. Before we even hit the back door, Azrin was accompanying us, and I noticed something pass between him and Liam. I assumed this now had something to do with Felix's perceived threat. When we got outside, I noticed that Maddox and Missy were arguing about something in hushed voices. Robert was nowhere to be found. Liam steered us right to our table, actively avoiding conversation for the moment. It didn't take long to find us, though. Slowly, alphas and betas from various packs approached us to speak to Liam, thinking there were details he left out about everything. One even demanded to see proof that we were not simply hiding. Damien and Liam put his foot down, refusing to parade them through our pack clinic like it is a zoo. Langston and Emma joined us much later, telling Liam that everything was in place to show the evidence of Warwick's most recent message when everything reconvened. Liam announced that we would begin again shortly to discuss any and all concerns and questions everyone had. Austin, Jacob, and Gentry finally joined us, and Felix returned to the group once we were all together. We should all get on the same page before we begin, Langston said. Liam nodded. Just give me a moment with my mate, he said, pulling me aside. When we were not in everyone's direct vicinity, he pulled me close and gave me a soft kiss. Please keep Azrin right by your side, he pleaded. Liam, what has you and Felix so worried? I asked. He just shook his head. Right now, it's just a feeling, but I need to focus on convincing these packs to help us. I can't beat Warwick with only Langston's help. I owe it to Damien to rip that bastard limb from limb, and I won't get the opportunity unless they help us, he said. I won't leave Azrin, but where is Felix going to be? He thinks it's possible Warwick sent someone after me. So he will watch them from the crowd. He had my father followed home as well. You really think someone would attack you so openly? I don't know. It seems unlikely, but if Warwick wanted to make a statement, that would be a way to do it, he explained. But there are no vampires here. We checked everyone, I argued. I was starting to get a little worried myself now. Just stay with Azrin. You and Emma should probably stick to the background right now. Langston has been my avid supporter since the start. If either of us is attacked, we don't want you two in the mix. All right, I agreed. And don't worry. Maddox was instructed to take Missy to the back of the crowd. I want them out of the direct view of everyone as well, he said. Liam gave me one more soft kiss before heading back to the group. Emma came to join me. I guess this is the part where the overprotective men worry for our safety now that things get heated, she said with a smile. I couldn't help but laugh a little. They like to do that, don't they? Alphas, she said, rolling her eyes. We both chuckled. I think I might go to the kitchen and get some lemonade. We didn't get much of our lunch with everything going on. Would you like to come? I asked her. Things were going to be heating up, but if Liam wanted me away from prying eyes, then I could at least waste a few minutes in the kitchen. I was also feeling a bit hungry after only getting a couple of bites of food. Sure, that sounds good. Langston was so busy speaking to other alphas after getting things together that we barely ate either, Emma said. We linked arms and headed away from the stage. We were only about halfway to the pack house when someone called out. "Excuse me, Luna," we heard. Emma and I stopped and turned, assuming we were being addressed. "Yes?" I asked as Alpha Jet and Beta Lance hurried toward us. Azran stepped close to me, and I gave him a look over my shoulder, but his face was passive as he watched Jet and Lance. "We were just wondering if you could help us with something," Jet said. "Oh, sure," I said, surprised. "There was an issue in our room, but we weren't able to speak with you earlier," Lance said. He looked a bit sweaty. "Oh, dear, I'm sorry about that. What is the problem?" I asked quickly. "It would be best just to show you," Jet said. He looked over my shoulder at Azran. "I think you should just tell my Luna what the problem is and return to the discussions," Azran said in a low tone. "It would really be easiest to show her. It would only take a minute, Luna Azalea, your friends won't miss you at all," Jet said. "She can handle the issue if you just tell her what it is," Azran reinforced. I was starting to get a sinking feeling. Lance looked between Azran, Emma, and me with a weird expression. "I'm afraid I will have to insist she come with me," Jet said before he lunged toward me. Azran pulled me back quickly, and I stumbled before falling as he went for Jet. I heard a shriek and realized that Lance had Emma. She was struggling against his grip. "Don't you hurt her!" I yelled. Azran was fighting with Jet, who was giving him a lot of trouble. "Luna, run!" Azran shouted. I tried to scramble to my feet but fell right back down when a sharp pain shot up my leg from my ankle. "Liam!" "Missy, no, Maddox, I am not going to hide. If Felix thinks someone is going to attack my parents, we are both going to be right here to help stop it." I argued with him. "Missy, please, your dad told me to take you to the back, and if anything happens, go straight to your grandparents." Maddox tried to reason. "No," I hissed, crossing my arms and stamping my foot for dramatic effect. We stood to the side of the gathering crowd. My dad and everyone else stood up at the front in a circle, talking to each other. "Arg," he grumbled. "Missy, why can't you just listen? Do you want your dad and Felix mad at me? I don't just listen. And they will be a lot happier with 2 extra wolves to jump in if something does happen," I said pointedly. Maddox rubbed his hands over his face, expressing his frustration. "He has a point, you could just be amiable for once," Holland said. "You are not taking his side," I said. "So what if I am?" Holland argued with me. "Tom would feel better if we just followed directions, too." I rolled my eyes. Lovesick wolves could be a real downer. Maddox looked past me toward the front, probably trying to see if anyone knew we were still standing here. "Hey, where is Luna? And Azran?" "They were right there with everyone," Maddox said, scanning the crowd. I turned and looked all around the stage. "Emma is gone too," I said, confused. "Where would they have gone?" Maddox asked. "I don't know. I thought they would stay right here with Liam and Langston," I said. I had an uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. Maddox said, locking eyes with Felix. "Stay right here. I'll be right back." He started moving toward Felix, who was walking towards us. I looked out among all the wolves who were settling down into their seats as Liam called everyone's attention. 2 of the visitors, an alpha and beta by the looks of it, were headed toward the pack house, and I could almost make out Lee beyond them. I turned my attention back to Maddox and Felix for a minute. Felix was giving Maddox some serious directions, but I couldn't decipher what they were whispering about. I'm going to check on Lee and Emma. They went back to the pack house. I want to make sure Lee is feeling okay. I linked Maddox, but he didn't reply. He had to be too busy with whatever Felix was telling him. Hopefully, he wasn't getting in trouble for my aversion to following commands. Instead of going all the way around the audience, I decided to go through them. I weaved in and around the tables and seats until I was finally headed to the pack house. As I broke away from the group, I heard a shriek, and I took off at a run. I immediately saw Azrin fighting with one of the guys while the other had Emma, who was struggling against him. "Let go of her!" I screamed. "Luna, run!" I heard Azrin yell. "Maddox, get my dad!" I linked before charging at the man that was trying to pull Emma away. She was kicking and fighting, but he was simply larger and stronger than her. His back was to me, so he didn't see me coming straight for him. When I was only a few strides away, I dropped down and slid right into his legs, knocking him backward over me. He fell with Emma landing on top of him, hitting the ground with a hard thump. He groaned and loosened his grip on Emma, who was able to pull away from him. She scrambled off of him as he continued to grab for her. I turned and launched my fist at his face, catching him across the cheek. Emma moved away quickly, going to Lee, who was trying to stand. I focused on the guy that grabbed her, only vaguely aware of Azrin fighting with the other guy. He tried to grab me now, angry that I stopped him from dragging Emma away. He growled. I wasted no time in swinging at him again. I missed but quickly recovered, bringing my knee into his gut. He huffed in pain but wasn't deterred. I could hear Azrin and the other guy fighting and wondered how long it would take Liam or Felix to notice. The man I was fighting lunged for me, and I fell back with him over top of me. I managed to hold him back just enough to get my legs underneath and push him away. As he fell away from me, Felix and Maddox appeared. Felix grabbed the man, tackling him to the ground and punching him relentlessly. Maddox was over me in a second. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "Lee," I said. We both turned to see Liam holding the man Azrin was fighting by his throat. Maddox pointed behind me to Emma, who had gotten my mom off the ground. "Missy Mom, are you okay?" "Emma?" I asked them, pushing myself up. Maddox grabbed me and started looking me over as I tried to push away. "Who sent you?" Liam shouted, snapping all our attention to him. Felix had the other one pinned to the ground, but he looked unconscious. "Please," the man gasped. "My mate. Robert." I entered the house and slammed the door closed behind me. "Robert?" Lissa called, irritation in her voice. "Yeah," I called back, heading for my office. She came around the corner, holding Asli in her arms. Asli just fell asleep, she hissed. "What are you doing here? I thought you would be at the summit all day." "HMMPPHH, I breathed out as I blew past her. She sighed from behind me. I entered my office and threw myself down in my chair. It didn't take long for Lissa to appear in the doorway with her hands on her hips. "What exactly is the problem now?" she shot at me. "We raised a weak, stupid boy who made a mistake accepting that weak, wolfless girl as a mate. We gave him plenty of choices, strong ones, yet here we are," I told her. "Not this again, Robert," she said, shaking her head. I just growled at her insolence. "No," she said. "Whatever this is stemming from, it needs to stop. I have let it go on far too long. Azalea may not be physically a strong wolf, but she is an adequate Luna. She brought us 3 strong grandchildren, and she is good to your son. She has never done wrong to this pack or your son. So? My son can't think straight the minute she gets a sniffle, I argued. And you think we had no part in that? Lissa said, raising her eyebrows. I stopped, stunned into silence. Was she insinuating that we were to blame for Azalea's weakness? It may be hard for you to admit because it was hard for me to come to terms with it as well, but we had our part in the way that girl turned out. If she was treated better under our care, then she may not be so weak as you like to say. How dare you accuse me? Robert, there is no denying it. It is a blessing of the goddess that the girl allows us within a mile of our son and grandchildren after everything. She should never forgive us or even her own mate for all the things that our family has put her through. Just because Azalea and Liam are not your idea of how an Alpha and Luna should be, does not mean they are doing a poor job. I glared at Lissa, but she held my gaze. When you are done wallowing in here, the boys and I will be playing outside while Azlee naps. She stormed away, leaving me alone in my office, stunned. Chapter 14. Lily. The beeping never stops. It goes on and on. I want it to stop. More than anything, I want it to stop. I want my mate to wake up and rip these stupid monitors off himself. I want him to hold me, I want to feel him again. Di, you have to wake up. Liam needs you, the kids need you. Di, I need you, I whispered. My forehead rested on his arm, he wasn't warm like he used to be. A single tear escaped my eyelids. I was losing hope that Azalea could do it. She came here every day, and I let myself hope each time that I would see his eyelids flutter. But then she would stop, not being allowed to push too far, and all that hope would crash down, further digging me into a grave of despair. I couldn't be mad at my best friend. She was doing everything she could, but I could be mad at the moon goddess. I never did anything to deserve this, and either did Damien. He was a good man, my perfect complement. Why would she let him be taken from me like this? Just wake up! I begged quietly to the endless beeping. Azalea. Liam made it all the way into the pack house, supporting my weight but allowing me to still walk. When we were out of sight of the other packs, he scooped me up and carried me right to our room. I appreciated him letting me walk that far and just leaned against him once I was in his arms. He needed comfort just as much as I did right now. When we got to our room, he kicked the door shut behind us and went straight to the couch, lowering himself down with me in his lap. Once he was sitting, he shifted his arms and took my face in his hands. His eyes bored into mine. They hurt you? His voice came out broken. No, I said, shaking my head softly. I tripped when Azran pushed me behind him. I was surprised by everything and tripped over my own feet. Liam quietly stared at me. I reached up and caressed his cheek slowly. They attacked you right under my nose, he said softly. He didn't think he had a choice. I reasoned. Liam closed his eyes, his face full of pain. I should have killed him, he growled. It was my turn to grab his face. No, I said sharply. Liam opened his eyes, looking at me. You didn't need to kill him. He didn't succeed, and now he played right into your hand. He helped you convince all those packs to help us. That isn't the man you are. Liam let out a heavy sigh and pulled me close. I curled myself into his chest and listened to his heartbeat. His arms were wrapped tightly around me, one hand cradling my head gently to his chest and the other around my arm. Little Luna, when will the world stop trying to hurt you? He whispered into the top of my head. I tried to sink myself further into Liam's hold. As long as I have you, I'm not scared of the world doing anything to me, I told him truthfully. I am, he admitted almost soundlessly. There was a short pause before he continued, I have thought I lost you so many times. I can't go through it again. I won't. I guess I can admit that Felix was right. He and Azran did their jobs, I whispered. That elicited a small chuckle from him. How does your ankle feel? He asked. It's fine, I said. I didn't want him to worry more. It was a shame I couldn't use my gift to heal myself. My uncle is on his way here to look at it, Liam said. How are you? I asked him. He made a disgruntled noise and nuzzled his face into the top of my head. How is Gavin? I asked. He wants eyes and hands on you. Liam mumbled into my head. Why don't you let me calm him? I suggested. Liam sat up with a breathy laugh. Your usual devices won't calm him. Plus, my uncle is on his way up the stairs, Liam said. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door, and Liam called Dr. Ron in the room. Liam refused to let me out of his lap while his uncle was with us. Luckily, it was a simple sprain and would heal up in only a couple of days, like I thought. Dr. Ron wrapped my foot in a long bandage and instructed me to keep weight off it as much as possible. Liam took that as a license to keep me in our room for the rest of the night. And while I generally disagreed with his overbearing protectiveness, I let it go a while, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the events of the day. After Ron left, I revisited the issue of Gavin. You'll both feel better if you let me calm him down, I reasoned with Liam. You already got hurt, and Gavin won't be easily swaged, Liam said. Little Luna, first and foremost, he is a beast. A beast that I have been handling just fine for a few years now. I purred. I looked up at Liam through my eyelashes. Little Luna, he groaned. You make it impossible to deny you know that. I smiled sheepishly at him. I know. With a heavy sigh, he closed his eyes. I knew he and Gavin were speaking, so I patiently waited until his eyes opened again and Gavin's dark pools were there. Little mate, he said in a gravelly voice. Gavin, I said. Did you hear the doctor? He just nodded. I'm okay, you know that. He nodded again. Are you going to calm down? His hand came up, and his fingers' tips gently traced down from my temple to my jaw. He watched their path thoughtfully. Someone thought they could touch my little mate, he said to no one in particular. And he was stopped. I am okay, I said. A small smile danced on his lips. I will be the judge of that, he said before his lips came crashing down onto mine. There was so much energy in his kiss. All the anxiety, frustration, anger, and even excitement from today came gushing out of him in one rough, delicious kiss. Soon, he was shifting me so I straddled his lap, my dress pushing up my thighs. His hands gripped them tightly, kneading my skin. I let my hands roam his chest and felt a slight rumble beneath my fingers. I felt a slight chuckle in his chest. I love you, Gavin. Love you, little mate, he said, then followed it up with a kiss on the top of my head. His body relaxed completely under me, and I knew Liam was coming back. He's too rough with you, he grumbled, hugging me tightly. I have no complaints, I chimed. Liam and I had dinner upstairs in our room. I wasn't exactly upset about being alone with him and not having to be crowded with questions so soon after everything. But I knew we wouldn't be able to stay alone together long, we were still hosting this summit after all. When Austin and Felix came to our door, it was our signal that time was up. Liam reluctantly let me go to meet separately with a few of the others he hoped would help him train and lead this large group of warriors. He was not happy, however, that I got up to leave as well. "Where are you going, little Luna?" he asked. "Downstairs," I said obviously. He gave me a look that said he disagreed. "I am just going to make an appearance, nothing strenuous." Liam just let out a heavy sigh. "Felix will stay with you then," he said. "If your ankle hurts, you will sit or have Felix bring you upstairs, though." "Not going to be carried," I insisted as I pushed him away toward the door. Felix just gave us a knowing look as Liam headed out of the room with Austin. I headed downstairs with Felix, slowly but steadily. My ankle still hurt, but the wrapping helped some. When we got downstairs, people were lingering in the dining room still. Lacey spotted her maid immediately and joined us. "Hey Lee, how you feeling?" she asked. "I'm fine," I told her. "Not the worst that could have happened." "I'm just glad nothing did happen," she said. "Jet and Lance and being held in a room right now, Felix tells me." I turned and gave him a discerning look while he only nodded to confirm. Liam and I would have things to talk about when he was finished. "Excuse me, Luna Azalea." I heard. I turned to see Beta Meadow coming toward us. "Beta Meadow," I greeted her. "I hope you are feeling better," she said, looking over me. "I'll be right as rain in no time," I assured her. "Well, I can't stay much longer, but I was hoping to speak with you or your mate. Unfortunately, I could not convince my alpha to help your cause, but that does not mean you won't be receiving our support," she explained. "Aidon may not see it, but this conflict is in no one's best interest, and I do believe that we are all at risk here." "I appreciate that," I told her. "I will be in contact soon as I can get back in the office and figure out how much help I can send without Aidon knowing." "He is easily distracted by his toys," she said. I could guess what her veiled words meant, so I only nodded. She gave me a tight smile before exiting the dining room. The next person to approach was Luna Quinn. "Oh Lee, wait, can I call you that?" she said quickly. I grinned and nodded. "Oh, good. Lee, I am so sorry. How is the ankle doing?" "It'll be okay," I assured. "Good. I would be a limping mess for days. Michael wouldn't let me out of his sight, I am sure," she gushed. "You are so brave and poised after such a scary thing." Well, there was a reasonable explanation behind his actions. They weren't from a place of malice. No, but it was scary nonetheless. "You remind me of one of my characters, actually," she chuckled. "Foolishly brave and overly empathetic. It can be a major character flaw or make her the best person in the room depending on who is reading." "Really?" I asked. "I'll have to read sometime." "I'll send you a copy," she smiled. She opened her arms and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, I think my mate is almost done speaking with yours, so I should go." "Have a good night," I said in farewell. "Let's head back upstairs before I have to endure any more of this," I whispered to Felix, who nodded. He held up his arm to give me something to hold onto and led me from the room. "You must have a very understanding mate for an alpha," someone said from behind me as we reached the steps. I stopped and dropped Felix's arm as I turned. It was Alpha Carson. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said. "Most alphas would not allow their mate to be on the arms of another." "Just an observation," he said. "Well, Liam has nothing to be worried about. Felix is simply helping me along." "Is there something I can help you with?" I asked. "I just felt it necessary to be honest with you, and I know you will relay this to your mate. While we are completely supportive of your plight, I do have some reservations about Liam's demeanor, he admitted. Oh. I said. Yes, he said. You see, there are rumors about you as well, dear, not just this pack and its namesake. While I do not care whether you are human or wolf, I can sense that your mate struggles to appropriate his focus accordingly when you are in the mix. I assure you that my mate is entirely focused on the vampire problem we face in this war, I said, my irritation rising. I meant no offense, Carson said, raising his hands. I just hope he knows, as well as you, that if his attention is deterred in a way that causes any harm to my pack members, vampires will not be his only problem. Chapter 15. Liam. I held Jet up by his throat, seeing nothing but red. How dare he try to hurt Azalea on my territory? Gavin was pushing for control, wanting to rip his throat out. Who sent you? I shouted. I wanted answers, and I wanted them now. Please, he gasped, trying to pry my fingers from his throat. My mate. She isn't your mate. I yelled. Sir, we are attracting a crowd, Azrin said, standing. Jet had given him a fight but Azrin kept him away from Azalea, which was the important part. Please, Jet gasped again. Where is my mate? I demanded. She's right here, I heard Langston say. She and Emma are just fine. Just a sprained ankle. I fell, Liam. I'm okay, I heard Azalea's voice behind me. I want answers, I directed at Jet. Let him give them to you in front of everyone, Azrin said. I looked at him sideways as he stood glaring at Jet struggling in my grip. I looked at Felix, who was hovering over his beta, he nodded his agreement. Personally, I preferred to break his neck right here, but I nodded. I loosened my grip just enough to let him breathe better but didn't let go. I dragged him with me back to the stage, depositing him right in the center. Felix followed, carrying Lance. The small crowd that had started to gather backed away as we stormed back to the stage. For the most part, everyone abandoned their seats, trying to get a look at what was happening. While you all debate why a race war affects your small part of our world, my Luna is being attacked. I shouted so everyone could hear me. The hushed conversations died down, and everyone paid attention to me now. Explain before I have your head for coming into my territory and trying to hurt my mate. He took her. He took my mate and threatened my son. The vampire has her and will only give her back if I bring him yours. Alpha Jet rushed out, quivering under me. A gasp was heard all around us. Warwick took your mate. Azalea said from behind me. I turned around quickly to see Azrin and Langston helping her over to me. Stay back, I warned her. Yes, yes, he has her. Jet said, quickly looking past me to Azalea. And how do we know you aren't lying to us? Emma asked. The vampire took my sister only 3 days ago then sent us photos as he is having my nephew followed at college, Beta Lance said from his position on the floor under Felix. Sister? I questioned. Jet nodded. My mate, my Luna, is my Beta's younger sister. We have a 19-year-old son off at college. He will take over as Alpha once he completes his degree, Jet explained quickly. Austin! I yelled. I needed to verify the information was true, I needed to know, and I wasn't sure if I could trust anyone outside of Langston and my pack members right now. I think he is telling the truth. Austin answered, coming to my side. We knew he had a mate and a son around the age of ascending to the position of Alpha. He didn't RSVP with her, though. I was going to leave her home, Jet said. I was not going to bring her for her safety. I stared down at the pathetic man beneath me. Liam, if his mate was really taken. Azalea said softly between us. I shook my head, I couldn't listen to that right now. How? I growled. There was an issue with our patrol. They picked up an odd scent and woke me after a long search. I left late at night to help them. We searched our whole pack land. We are smaller than this pack, but still, we searched everywhere. No one knew what the scent was, and it seemed to be everywhere but lead to nothing, he gushed. His eyes were wide, imploring me to believe him. When I returned in the morning, she wasn't in our room. She was nowhere in our pack house. I found the photos of my son on my desk with a note from the vampire. He said he would keep her, and I could trade her evenly, Luna for Luna, if I brought him the Luna of Blood Eclipse. We had only gotten your invitation 2 days prior, and I knew nothing of you or your mate. Please, I would do anything to save my mate. You clearly would do anything to protect yours, assigning 2 guards to her. He motioned to Ezran and Felix. Alpha, if I may, Sally spoke up. I turned to face her. My Alpha would like to vouch for Alpha Huxley. He knows him to be a reasonable and honorable wolf, and he does not believe that Alpha Huxley or his beta would come to your land to attack you or your Luna without provocation. I looked at the trio of wolves next to her, all standing proudly as they watched me. Alpha, if I might add something as well. Luna Jess Allen said, standing from her seat. She had been quiet and kept to herself so far today, not even engaging in discussions at lunch from what we could observe. Yes, Luna. I said. I believe that this shows every alpha in attendance here that this threat is very much to them as well as you, she said. I couldn't help the surprised look that came over my face. She walked toward the stage, everyone stepping aside to let her walk through freely, and held her hand up to me. If I may. I helped her climb up onto the stage and nodded, giving her the floor. We too were visited only some days ago by a vampire shortly after receiving the invitation to this summit from Alpha Blackfur. My mate and I were very split on the issue. I was on the side of coming, hearing out the Wolves of Blood Eclipse before we chose any side, while my mate wanted to stay out of the issue, she explained. Everyone listened with rapt attention to the woman who held herself confidently and elegantly in front of them. We also received notice from our night patrol of odd scents within our borders. I went to investigate, for, in my pack, the warriors are under my direction. We searched for some time before being alerted to an intruder at our pack house. When we arrived, my mate was lying dead on the front lawn. There was a note under his body, telling me exactly who was responsible. Luna Jess Allen turned to Jet. If he kidnapped your mate, then I can understand why you risked attacking Alpha Liams to get her back. I have not spoken my mind during any of the discussions yet, as I have yet to tell my allies about my mate's passing. My son and daughter too are at college, and I believe them to be in danger. She reached out a hand toward Jet, offering to help him up. He took it, but I growled as he got to his feet. I felt a small, warm hand on my back and turned to see Azalea. Alpha Blackfur, I am truly sorry for my actions. I felt I had no other choice. Please, I need my mate. I am sure you can understand this after what you have told us. I will help you fight the vampire if you can help me get my Luna back, Jet pleaded with me. My warriors will also help to fight the vampires. They will want revenge for what has been done to their Alpha, Luna Jess Allen said. My Alpha also agrees to help, Sally spoke. I turned back toward the crowd, seeing the looks on everyone's faces. While we do not condone his actions, we can understand why they have transpired, Alpha Carson said. We will also help, Alpha Andrus said. We will help get your mate back, he directed at Jet. So will we, Alpha Michael piped in. If anyone were to threaten Quinn, they would not breathe a moment more. But you are lucky this Alpha and his Luna's selected guards did not execute you and your Beta on the spot. I will not tolerate such dishonorable behavior amongst my allies. Others nodded in agreement. Soon, there were murmurs of assent and cooperation spreading around the group. I looked around, a little shocked that the crowd was turning in my favor. See, Liam, they just needed a reason, Azalea said softly next to me. Azrin had his arm around her, helping to support her weight. I looked to Langston, who had Emma held tightly against his chest. Although she is a normal werewolf, her age had slowed her down, and I am sure she was not able to fight back as she had wanted to. Even Langston has gotten a bit weaker over the years we have been training together. I looked down at my mate. After all that, she didn't look scared or worried, and I could feel her relief through our bond. I still wanted to tear Jet limb from limb, and Gavin was on my side of the fence, but I could also understand why he attempted to take her. I would have gone after the vampire myself, but not all alphas are like me. I'll be just fine, but you now have your allies, my alpha, Azalea said, getting my attention again. I snaked my arm around her waist and nodded for Azrin to step away. She smiled warmly at me, leaning against me. No one got injured, except maybe Lance and Jet. I just need a bit of ice, and I'll be right as rain. He is worried about his Luna, and if anyone can understand that feeling, it is you, she continued silently. You were out of your mind until you got to us. So let's help him. You are far too forgiving, I told her. It's just understanding, my alpha, she smiled. Go on. Address them all. Azrin can take me inside, and we'll call your uncle. She patted my chest. I let out a sigh and looked back to the crowd of alphas, betas, and other pack representatives before looking at Austin and Felix. Let's adjourn this for now. I want to take Azalea inside and have her ankle looked at. I want to speak with the alphas we already flagged if they agree to help us. Anyone else can leave my territory tonight, I linked them, and they both nodded. I turned to Langston, who nodded, already knowing where my mind was. I would like to take Emma inside as well, he said. Missy. After Austin dispersed the crowd and Langston and Liam left with Emma and Lee, Maddox pulled me aside. His eyes were still a little wild as he looked me all over. Are you sure you're okay? He asked, worried. I'm fine, Maddox, I promise, I said. He grabbed my face in his hands and kissed me deeply. I heard you say to get your dad, and I was so worried, he said, breaking away from me after stealing all the oxygen in my body. I saw the guy attacking Emma, and I don't know what happened, I just moved, I told him. I can't believe you got the better of a beta, Maddox said proudly. I nodded, still disbelieving myself. When it happened, all I could think about was protecting Emma and Lee, and then I was fighting a grown man. You're incredible, darling, Maddox said, breaking me from my thoughts. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and looked at me lovingly. But maybe we should work on your fighting skills a bit. Yeah, I said, nodding. It might be good if you or Felix were to show me some things. Wait, you want to train with us? Maddox asked, his eyes lighting up with excitement. Yeah, I told him. I had no idea what I was doing, I just did. Maddox ran his hands up and down my arms, and I felt a warm trail of sparks erupting from his touch. I realized at that moment that I was shaking a bit. Maddox looked at me lovingly, it's the adrenaline. Now that everything is calmed down, your body is expelling the byproducts of all that energy. Let's go to the kitchen and put some food in you, it'll help. He wrapped his arm around my waist, and I leaned into him a bit as we headed to the kitchen. I was surprised to find Emma and Langston sitting at the island with Miss Marcy in the kitchen while all the dinner preparations were going on around them. "Maddox, Missy," Miss Marcy greeted us. "Luna, Emma was just telling me about what happened. Are you all right, dear? Dr. Ronald is on his way to see Luna upstairs, we could have him check you as well. Maybe just some lemonade and an apple, please," Maddox said as we came over to them. "Of course," Miss Marcy said before ducking in between the volunteers in the kitchen. Sol was hard at work over something on the stove, so I didn't bother her. "Missy, dear, we owe you a big debt of gratitude," Langston said, standing from his seat so I could sit next to Emma. "No, I was just doing what anyone would do," I said. "No, dear," Emma said, grabbing my hand. "You were downright amazing and so brave. They could have easily taken me in Azalea's place, and I am embarrassed to say I could not get out of his hold. I am afraid what may have happened if you had not noticed all of us." I blushed in embarrassment. I hadn't done anything amazing, I wasn't going to let someone hurt Emma or my mom. Maddox rubbed his hand on my back, and I could feel his pride through our bond. Miss Marcy returned with a glass of lemonade and a sliced apple, pushing them in front of me. "Liam and Lee sure raised a wonderful girl," Langston said. "You will do amazing things." The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.